Hey, welcome! So today, we're jumping into a really fascinating new paper that gets at a question I think we've all struggled with. Why do great teams just fall apart? It gives us this whole new way of looking at what makes groups tick for the long haul. Let's get into it.
I mean, seriously, think about it for a second. You've seen it, right? A project at work is on fire, everyone's excited, and then a few months later, it just fizzles. Or a community group that was doing amazing things just kind of dissolves. It can feel so random. But what if there are patterns? What if there's a logic we're just not seeing? That's the core question we're going to unpack today. So here's a really key distinction the research makes right off the bat. Most of the time, when we talk about cooperation, we're focused on how to get it started. That initial spark. But what this paper says is, that's actually the easy part. The real challenge, the thing we almost always overlook, is how you sustain it. How do you keep that fire going, year after year?
And for a long time, the way we've tried to solve this puzzle has been by looking at the two extremes. We either pull out the microscope and look at individual psychology, what's happening inside one person's brain, or we pull out the telescope and look at these giant macro-level institutions and rules. But what about everything in between?
To really see that gap, it helps to think in three levels. So down at the bottom, you have the micro level. That's us as individuals, making our own choices. Then way up at the top, you have the macro level, right? The big currents of society, the institutions. But look at that huge space right there in the middle.
And this is the big aha moment of the whole paper. The secret, the answer, has been hiding in plain sight this whole time. It's in the middle, at what they call the meso-level. And that's where we live our lives, isn't it? In our families, our project teams, our organizations. This is the forgotten layer where cooperation either thrives or dies.
Okay, so if the meso-level is where it's at, what's the secret recipe for success? What does it actually take for cooperation to last? Well, the paper gives us this beautifully simple two-part definition.
So for cooperation to be truly sustainable, it needs two things. It's not one or the other. First, it has to be stable. It has to endure, right? It needs to last. But, and this is so important, that's not enough. It also has to be valuable. And not just for the people inside the group, but for society as a whole. You've got to have both.
I love this direct quote from the paper. It just says it all. The mere continuation of cooperation does not make it sustainable. In other words, just because something has been around for a really long time doesn't automatically make it good or sustainable. Let's look at a couple of examples. It'll make it crystal clear.
So on one hand, you could have a criminal organization. I mean, it's incredibly stable, right? The cooperation inside it might be perfect, but it's obviously not valuable to society. It actually creates negative value. Then you've got the flip side. Think about a one-time charity fundraiser. It creates a ton of positive value, but it's here today, gone tomorrow. It's not stable. Neither one is truly sustainable. See the difference? All right, so now we know what we're aiming for. But what are the things that can tear it all down? The paper points to three hidden threats. These unseen forces that can sneak in and just wreck a perfectly good team or project. But once you know what they are, you can start to spot them. Okay, threat number one is what they call external shocks. These are the big, out-of-the-blue events that come from the outside, from that macro level we talked about. We're talking about things like a global pandemic, a huge financial crisis, stuff like that. They just come in and completely upend the way things normally work.
And the paper gives this amazing real-world example. So, during the first COVID lockdown in the Netherlands, the official rule, the macro-level rule, was that healthcare interns could stay home. But get this, nearly a quarter of them, 23%, kept going to work, even with all the risk. Why would they do that? Because their meso-level, that strong, supportive, we're-in-this-together team culture, was so powerful it actually overrode the external shock. That's resilience.
Threat number two is something I think we've all felt. It's called spillover effects. This is basically when the stress and the dynamics from one part of your life, say your job, spill over and start to poison another part of your life, like your family. And this framework gives us a totally fresh take on the whole quiet quitting conversation. It's so often framed as, oh, it's just this generation's work ethic. But this paper suggests maybe it's a negative spillover. Maybe, when a company's demands are fundamentally at odds with the values people hold for their families and communities, they just pull back. The solution, then, isn't about blaming individuals. It's about organizations doing a better job of aligning their goals with the real lives of their employees. And that brings us to our third and final threat, vicious cycles. These are so dangerous because they happen from the inside. It's when a group's own actions start a negative feedback loop that just gets worse and worse, eroding the very trust and motivation that holds the group together. It's like a self-inflicted wound.
A perfect example of this is something called the sanction trap. You've probably seen it. It starts when cooperation starts to slip a little. So what's the typical reaction from management? More rules, more punishments. But that sends a message of distrust, right? And that kills people's own internal motivation to do good work. So then, people start just doing the bare minimum, or looking for loopholes, which of course, management sees as proof that they need even more rules. And there you have it, the downward spiral. The better way is to build trust, not fear.
So when you put all of this together, the definition of sustainable cooperation and these three hidden threats, it's more than just a theory. It's like getting a new pair of glasses. It gives you a powerful new way to look at the groups in your own life and start to see what's really going on beneath the surface.
So let's just quickly recap the big takeaways here. Number 1, for cooperation to really last, it has to be both stable and valuable. Can't have one without the other. Number 2, stop looking at just the individual or just society. The real action, the real magic is in the middle, at the meso-level. And finally, keep your eyes peeled for those 3 hidden killers: external shocks, spillover effects, and vicious cycles. And so I'll leave you with this question to think about. Using this new lens, look around at your world, your job, your community, maybe even your own family. Where do you see cooperation under threat? And now that you know what to look for, can you spot which of these hidden forces might be at play? Thanks for tuning in.